Hi, and welcome to this 30-minute yoga practice. I'm Andrea. Always great to have you here with me. A few things we're going to do today in our practice are going to, I think, really require a chair. Sometimes it's more a suggestion. Today, I'm going to say, have the chair with you. I think it's a good idea. I'm standing on a yoga mat. If you don't have one, just find a place in your house that's carpeted maybe, but certainly not too slippery. And always a good idea to have something that you can use as a couple of yoga blocks, maybe 2 thick, substantial books, and a folded blanket. That can be the blanket that's the throw blanket on your couch, or even a juicy, thick bath towel or beach towel. And then when you have those things, you can adjust your mat or imagine your imaginary mat so that you're facing me. I'm going to move my mat around a little bit and even operate not necessarily on my mat so that I can be facing you and easiest to follow. You don't have to worry about movement. That's for me to do. Ready? Let's start in our mountain pose, our Tadasana, feet hip distance. Turn your palms away from one another. Let that lift your heart in every way. A little bit of bend in your knees so that we're not locked anywhere. There's something that feels fluid. We're standing in beautiful posture. Head over shoulders, over hips, over heels. So it's a sense of leaning your head back, not throwing your chin up, but leaning your head back. Getting rid of the habitual slumps that sometimes happen for us in our spine. And then fill this majesty with breath. See if you can breathe in and out through your nose. Ideally, that's from now until the end of our practice together. A couple of moments just to listen to your breath and to land your feet into the earth and the crown of your head into the sky here in your mountain. Now stand out wide onto your mat. If you don't have a mat, just step out wide as if you did. Take your arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. You're kind of basically ankles underneath wrists. That's a loose assessment of where we want to be. Turn your right leg out and let your right foot face the short edge of your mat. And then cheat your left heel back at about a 45-degree angle. First, try it on for size. So I'm going to make sure that the knee is not too forward of the ankle. I generally need a little bit more length in my stance, and maybe you do too. Now we'll be dynamic here. So inhale, V shape overhead, front leg straightens. Exhale, bend your front knee and float the arms. Keep the thumbs to the sky. Inhale, arms in a V shape overhead. Exhale, bend your front knee, thumbs stay skyward. Inhale, V shape, press into the big toe side of your foot as you straighten it. And then when you bend and exhale, feel your heel, your right heel, stamp into the ground. One more time, a V shape overhead. And then bend your front knee. Remember, thumbs to the sky. That's going to help us not shrug our shoulders into our ears. It sort of feels like turning the palms away from each other in our mountain pose. And speaking of mountain pose, let your back leg feel like it is in mountain pose now. Press that left thigh bone into the hamstring. And imagine a magnet on your right thigh bone, moving that right thigh bone to the right. It's a hip opener in our right hip, which is a good thing. This particular positioning of our hip in its socket, or our thigh bone in its hip socket, doesn't happen all the time when we stand and sit the way that we tend to in our lives. If your arms get tired, just lower them down for a moment and bring them back up. We have 2 more moments in this particular warrior moment together. Now slowly, press into the right big toe mound, straighten your front leg, lower your arms, and pause for a second. Just feel how we're building a little internal heat. It's a good thing. We're warming up. And then slowly rebend the front knee, thumbs to the sky. And this time, take your right forearm onto your right thigh bone, like a shelf. But when you find the shelf, there's no collapse, right? So feel like there's almost a little karate chop of that right forearm onto the thigh, left thumb to the sky. Try to swing your right hip underneath you, and then just remember our recipe of the right thigh bone moving to the right, and you can kind of convince it a little bit carefully with your forearm. The right hip is tucking underneath you, and then the back leg is standing in our mountain pose. If this top arm is getting tired, just weave it behind your back. That's kind of a beautiful way of doing this same pose. And you get to take personal agency as we do these poses so that the porridge is just right. It feels like it's kind of spicy and interesting, but not everything tastes good with hot sauce, so we don't want it to get too hot. 2 more moments here. Now slowly with your belly firm, come upright in your warrior pose, thumbs to the sky, and then straighten that front leg. Lower your arms and recover for a second. That was a pretty long stay. Turn all of your toes towards the long edge of your mat. We'll keep this stance because we're measured up here. Turn your left leg out. Let your left foot face the short edge of your mat. Cheat your right heel back at that 45-degree angle. Bend your front knee. Just make sure that the spacing is where we want it to be. Thumbs are to the sky. Straighten the front leg, press into the left big toe mound, V shape overhead. And then we'll do this dynamically. It just means we're moving at a little bit of a tempo, a little bit of a clip. Bend the front knee. This is the exhale, thumbs to the sky. Inhale, V shape, arms overhead, front leg is straight. Bend your front knee, thumbs to the sky, pause. And then inhale, V shape, front leg straight. 2 more times if you don't mind. Bend the front knee. Exhale into your warrior stance. And then inhale a V shape with the front leg straight. Last time, bend your front knee, thumbs to the sky, and we linger a little bit longer and we can build it from the ground up. Let the outer edge of your back foot feel solid into your mat, and the back arch feel like it's lifted and alive. Press into your left heel. Find the magnet feeling of your left thigh bone to the left, low belly lifting. Remember, if your arms are tired, lower them down for a moment, and then bring them thumbs to the sky. Just 2 moments here. Now slowly straighten your front leg and lower your arms, and we have that little respite moment here. So front leg is straight for the time being, arms are relaxed by your side. Head back in, bend that front knee, thumbs to the sky. And now our karate chop of the left forearm, right thumb to the sky. We're not collapsed, we're not shrugging our shoulders into our ears. And you can kind of convince with your left karate chopping forearm, left thigh bone to the left. Feel your left hip hug underneath you so it's not butt swinging out to the side. And then really feel that you're standing in your mountain pose in your back leg. Remember, if the top arm is tired, just weave it behind your back. That might feel better to some of us, especially as we hang out for a few moments here. What kind of space can you create between your shoulders and your ears? What kind of space can you create between your inhales and exhales? And maybe even in between the thoughts in your head. 2 moments. And then firm through your feet and your belly and come upright, thumbs to the sky. Slowly straighten your front leg, lower the arms, and now turn all of your toes to face the long edge of your mat. Slowly, heel toe, till your hip distance, and you can move about the cabin freely. Triangle pose is going to require a couple of options of props. You might move your chair to the middle of your mat so that your hand can be on the seat of the chair. If you're using blocks or thick books, set them up as I am. The long edge of your mat, out of your way, so not right in the middle of it, but right off just towards the edges of your mat. And then come back to facing the long edge of your mat, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Step wide like we did for our warrior pose. And then turn your right leg out so that your right foot faces that short edge of your mat. Situate left heel back at a 45-degree angle. Now, our legs are straight, but they're not locked out. So have the tiniest little feeling of a bend in your knees so that you feel your muscles turn on. And then this is not a side bend. This is a hip hinge. So hinge at your hip, reach out with your right hand like you want to really touch someone who's pretty far off the front edge of your mat. And then either lower your hand to your block on the outside of that right foot or to the base of your chair behind you, situated. Feel as though you're spinning the inner upper arms away from each other. Thumb stays skyward. And just like in our bent kneed pose, if it's better with the arm behind your back, great. We don't want to have what's called impingement in the shoulder, so you're not squishing or struggling in the shoulder. If arm to the sky works for you, that's fine. Some days it may. Other days, weaving that arm behind your back might feel better. Now just stay with it and breathe. We're still standing in our mountain in our back leg, that thigh bone into the hamstring, and imagine both sides of your waist equally long. 2 more moments here. Now, I like to add a bit of bend to my knee on the way out. So front knee's a little bit bent, and then just move your block off to the side so it doesn't get in your way for second side and come upright. If you're using your chair, it's fine where it is. Turn your toes so that they all face the long edge of your mat. And then turn your left leg out so your left foot's facing the short edge of your mat. Cheat your right heel, your back heel at that 45-degree angle. Thumbs to the sky. Remember, not side flexion, a hip hinge. Reach long, way out. There's somebody that you want to shake hands with. Not that we do that anymore, but pre-pandemic handshake. And then take your left hand onto your block or to the base of your chair. Remember that we want just a little hint of bend in our knee so we're not locked out. And right thumb to the sky. Spin the inner upper arms away from each other. Make so much space between your shoulders and your ears. And if it feels better to you to weave that top arm behind your back at any point, do that. We'll stay for a few moments here. Slow, steady inhales. Complete exhales. And now, firm through your feet and your belly. Add that little extra bend so that you can move your props and come upright slowly, and then turn all your toes to face the long edge of your mat and heel toe away once again so that we're operative here, hip distance. This is where I think pretty much all of us are now going to use the base of our chair, the seat of our chair. So some of you have it in the middle of the long edge of your mat. You could leave it there if you want to, or move it as I have it at the front of my mat. And standing with your feet hip distance so that you have access, easy access to the seat of your chair. Inhale, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, a little bend in your knees. Take your hands to the tops of your thighs. And then inhale your heart towards the front edge of your mat, or lengthen through the spine. Take your hands onto the base of your chair, and from here, start to extend your left leg back behind you, turn the toes out, and think about taking your left hand onto your hip so it's like we're doing triangle, but only on the bottom leg. You've got bend in your knee. You're just doing your best to turn your chest open towards that long edge of your mat. So if you can think of the recipe of our triangle and see if you can make that happen in your right hip, that's all we're doing. We've got a little balancing fun. If you look down, sometimes the balance is a little easier to arrive at. If you want a little bit more challenge, you can turn your gaze out, and some of you might even float right thumb to the sky. Remember, we're not scrunched. You want some oomph as a lift in your low belly. If you took the arm to the sky, return it to your hip. Super slowly, take your right hand onto your chair and then just step your feet hip distance. Take your hands to your thighs. Inhale, grow long, traction your hands against your thighs. Exhale, hinge at the hips and fold. And then inhale, rise, reach, V-shape to the sky. Pause in your mountain. Now I'm moving my chair only so that I don't turn my back on you. You're fine, you can just turn the other direction with your chair. And I'm not even operating on my mat, as I said, just so that I have visibility for you. Inhale, arms out to the side, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands onto your thighs. Inhale, heart extends, hands onto the base of your chair. Now start to stand on your right leg now and extend your left leg back behind you. Turn, so hug your right hip underneath you. Take your left hand onto your hip and imagine that you're doing triangle on one leg. And just pause for a few moments here. If it feels good to you, take your left arm up to the sky. Have a little bit of a bend in your leg, your bottom leg. And breathe for a few moments here. And if you did the other side first, it's fine. You're just standing on a bottom leg. And you have the top leg extending back behind you. Take your hand, your top hand onto your hip again. Very, very slowly turn so that you're facing the seat of your chair, and then step that top leg down, hands onto your thighs. Inhale, heart lifts. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, rise and reach thumbs to the sky, and then pause in your mountain. I'm relocating my chair. You don't need to do the same. You can just keep it where it was the whole time. And you are maybe going to want to use the taller part of your chair for this next bit. Just do the best that you can. Okay, so hip distance, standing in our mountain. We'll stand on our left foot first, and we'll create a figure four. So cross the right ankle just on top of the knee, so right onto the thigh. This is already a ton, so you can stay just like this the whole time. Bending your left knee, you might start to take your hands onto the chair seat, or you can keep it on the back of your chair. Curl your right toes back and make sure that none of us drop our head lower than our hips. So stay as upright and long in your spine as you can. And then just continue to curl those right toes back. And think about in our sun salutation, when you have your hands on your thighs and you grow tall through your spine, and just see if you can find that in this figure four configuration. Talk about some hip opening, right? A few more moments here. Just do your best. You can always walk up a little bit taller. If it lets you in and you feel like there's a little bit of mobility, you can always bend your left knee a little bit, but keep that length through the spine and your head high. 2 more moments. Firm through your feet and your belly. Come up and then right foot, hip distance from left foot. Landed in your mountain for a moment. This time stand on the right foot. Cross left ankle atop the knee. Hand on either the back of your chair as I do, eventually maybe onto the seat of the chair, but first get the mechanics of a really nice flex of your ankle, bend your right knee, and then you'll feel all the feels, right? So you'll start to get the feelings of things. You can take your hands onto the seat of the chair. Just promise me that you have that length in your spine and your head is high. And then find the sweet spot. The sweet spot that's kind of sweet and sour or bittersweet, because there's a little bit of something going on, right? And then let this be a little meditation spot. Low belly is lifting. Right hip is swinging into a midline, not swinging out to the side. 2 more moments here. Now, be careful on the exit. Walk your hands up a little higher, I think, for most of us. Place your left foot hip distance from your right. We'll take a sun salutation here. Inhale, arms out to the side, a V shape overhead. Exhale, hinge at your hips, take your hands onto your thighs. This was the length through the spine that I was talking about. Inhale, lengthen, heart lifts. Then as you exhale, take your hands to your chair base and begin to bring yourself onto the ground. Once you're on the ground, this is where our folded blanket or towel is going to be a pretty great asset, I think. So just make sure all the toys are out of your way. And I like to fold my blanket so that it's like a real perch, a bit of a bench almost. You can add a pillow from your couch even to this. And then situate your seat onto your folded blanket or your pillow or your cushion. And then think about our triangle and that triangle that was floating on one leg. And now make that happen seated with your legs wide out to the side. Now this is sticky, tricky business. So start with a little bend in your knees and let yourself stand tall, like the length that we found with our hands on our thighs. The toes are to the sky. You can start to work very slowly, the legs towards straight, but what I don't want is this sort of rounding struggle. So keep your knees as bent as you need them to be. They don't have to be super wide. Find a manageable spot where you get the sensation of a stretch in the inner thighs and in the what's called external rotators of your hips, which is exactly what we've done in all those standing poses, including our figure 4 that got us here. And with your toes curling to the sky, take a moment to close your eyes if you don't mind. If closing your eyes is uncomfortable, a soft gaze towards the ground. And a moment of meditation here in our wide-legged seated perch. Last 15 seconds here in our little quiet meditation moment. If your mind is wandering, so is mine. Let's come back to our breath and the sensations of stickiness that bring us into the moment. Couple moments here. You can do it. Excellent. Slowly start to make your way out of this pose. So bend your knees, carefully place your feet down on the ground, and dismount your folded blanket or towel. Then lie down on your back. And as you lie down, feet are hip distance, knees pointing to the sky. Think about our figure 4 that we did standing. And take your right ankle on top of your left knee. If you do the other side first, don't worry about it. I'm fairly certain that I mixed up left from right earlier in this practice. So we're all doing our best, right? Now it's perfect to keep your right ankle on top of your left thigh and shimmy your shoulder blades underneath you and let this be the perfect spot to sit. Some of you will do this and put the bottom foot on your block, and some of you will thread the needle and interlace around the hamstring or the shin. But what I want is to avoid this kind of struggle. It's a little bit like the rounding that I was talking about in our upright seated pose. Find a place where the spice is just right. And then I will leave you in some quiet stillness. Here as well, you can close your eyes if you're comfortable. Now very slowly, let this first side go. Place your feet hip distance, cross your other ankle on top of the thigh. So like I said, maybe that's the left side, maybe not. Reach through the space if you did that. Put your bottom foot on your block if that's what you were up to. And then take the struggle out of it. Let there be this spirit of being forgiving here. Much like I hope that the spirit of being forgiving will come my direction if I did mess up right from left earlier. Wouldn't be the first time in my career. And then let's get still in our forgiveness. And let it be almost a meditation of forgiveness here. A full minute. Wonderful, masterful meditation. Ease your way out of this shape. Step your feet now as wide as your mat. Cactus shape your arms out to the side, and then just gently let both of your thighs move to the right. Some of you might use that figure 4 recipe here. Pick up your right foot, cross the right ankle on top of the left thigh. If that feels like it's more than you need, just stay with that windshield wiper and right foot on the ground instead. And then come through center and windshield wiper both knees over to the left. If you want to cross left ankle on top of the thigh, I leave that to you. Sometimes just letting it be a little softer is nice too. And then come to center. Step your feet as wide as your mat. Bring your arms along your side and snuggle your shoulder blades underneath you. Knees kiss together here. And you can stay this way. Or if it feels good in your body to straighten one leg and then the other and let your feet flop open, it's our final Shavasana meditation. You're always welcome and in fact encouraged to stay in your Shavasana final meditation as long as you'd like. If you're ready, bend your knees. If they're not already, place your feet on your mat and roll gently to either side. Use your hands so that your head can be the last thing to come up. And find any comfortable seat, maybe back onto your perch, palms up or down. And just feel, especially we focused on our hips today, how things might feel a little bit more alive and free and liberated. And wear that out into your day. I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I look forward to us doing it again soon.